Spencer Rattler season is officially upon us. What should we expect from the rookie quarterback this Sunday when they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Huda Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, we're brought to you by Scott McNair. Injury lawyers have been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore. Scott McNair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. So the times are a-changing for the Saints, at least for now. Spencer Rattler has been named the starting quarterback. Dennis Allen made the announcement on Wednesday. And this isn't, as at least for now, not a replacement situation. Derek Carr dealing with an oblique injury, expected to miss multiple games. And with the Saints playing Sunday against the Buccaneers, and then a quick turnaround Thursday night against Denver Broncos, here's the moment for Spencer Rattler, and here's the moment for us Saints fans to see what this rookie quarterback is all about. And now, before I get into kind of my expectations and hopes, just want to remind you guys, if you're listening live, you can put your comments below, and I'll get to them later on in our fan Q&A portion. And if you guys want and you're really enjoying the content, make sure to like the video. It greatly helps out the channel. And subscribe. We'll have our halftime show on Sunday, our post-game live stream, and a whole lot more coming here at Boo Crew Media. So let's jump into it. Spencer Rattler making his debut this Sunday. And man, I'm awfully excited. I'm excited for what it means for this Saints team. I'm excited for what it could mean for the future. And I've acknowledged that this could all kind of blow up in my face, right? Spencer Rattler could look like a rookie. He could look like a guy where the moment's too big for him. But when you start to listen to what Saints coaches, Saints players are saying, and you know the vibe around the building, it feels a little different. Now, this isn't to say that Spencer Rattler is going to go out there on Sunday and light it up. I think for the NFL, it's such an unpredictable league that I think it's best for us all to just acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know. And there is that unknown aspect of it, but it's also exciting because us Saints fans have kind of dealt with the mediocrity of the quarterback position and being in quarterback hell. And just think of where we've been over the last couple of years with Drew Brees, post-Drew Brees, right? We've seen Taysom Hill start. We've seen Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian. We've seen Ian Book, and Lord knows that wasn't a pretty game. We've seen Derek Carr. We've seen Andy Dalton. So we've seen a lot of quarterbacks go under center post-Drew Brees. This is probably the most different and most exciting it's felt, though, in the post-Brees era because of what Spencer Rattler brings to the table. He's got a live arm. He's got a ton of upside. Remember, this is a kid who years ago, you're thinking maybe number one pick. Obviously, things don't go the way you wanted to. If you're Spencer at Oklahoma and you have the fallout, go to South Carolina, definitely mature, still fall in the draft, but there's excitement around him. He's not your typical fifth-round pick. And what I found so interesting this week for the Saints is when Clint Kubiak was asked about Spencer Rattler, here are two things he mentioned. He said, I haven't met a lot of gamers. Usually what people do in practice is what they do in games. That's why we're confident in the decision to go with Spencer. That was the first quote that stood out to me. The second one, though, I thought was really awesome. Said on his strengths, he feels the pocket around him. He has all 5 eligibles, things you can't coach. That's important because we all know the Saints are going to face a lot of pressure regardless of who's at quarterback because the offensive line's banged up right now. And for Spencer, if this debut is going to go the way we want it to go, he's got to avoid pressure. He's got to be able to get out of harm's way, not take too many sacks, and keep the offense on schedule. That's been one of the killers for the Saints, right? The penalties, the not being able to run the football, taking sacks, like that is what's going to hurt this offense. And if Spencer wants to make sure his debut goes as well as possible, he's got to, under all circumstances, make sure that he keeps him on schedule. And look, he's going to get sacked. He's a rookie. It's inevitable. Todd Bowles is going to cook some schemes up to confuse him at the line of scrimmage. But don't let it get overwhelming and don't look kind of shy in the moment. So that's going to be important for Spencer. What I want to throw out there is two things, though, for him. The first is, I think this debut will tell us more if it goes well rather than if it goes poorly. And the second part is, if it goes well, the Saints, and you don't want to overreact, might have a situation on their hands that could change the franchise for the better. So let's start with the first one. Why do I say we'll learn more if he does well than if he does bad? Well, let's just look at the injury report, guys, right? You know Eric McCoy's still out. You know Cesar Ruiz is not going to play. You know Taysom Hill's still not going to play. Lucas Patrick's probably not going to play. So you're going to be without your left guard, your right guard, and your starting center from the beginning of the season. Now, Rashid Shaheed has said he will play or he expects to play, but he's missed practice the last 2 games. So he's going to be banged up. Look at the defense. Obviously, they've had some injuries. Pete Werner, Willie Gay, Peyton Turner, but not as bad as the offense, obviously. So let's keep it on the offense. If a rookie quarterback in his first start against a really experienced defensive coach in Todd Bowles has 3 starting offensive linemen missing, their probably most versatile weapon in Taysom Hill, and Rashid Shaheed's banged up, it's kind of tough to expect, or not expect. It's tough to watch that rookie quarterback struggle and be like, you know what? That's who Spencer Rattler is as a quarterback. To me, that's a little unfair. But if Spencer's able to overcome all that and looks competent and puts up a nice stat line, doesn't have to, light up the box score, but if Spencer Rattler goes out there, throws for, 180 yards, has a touchdown, avoids a couple of sacks, doesn't really make that costly mistake, that's a good game in my opinion. You don't want to set the bar too high and you don't want to set it too low. I'm not going to go in and if Spencer Rattler throws 3 picks, no touchdowns and say he'll be just fine. No, that's not ideal. But you don't want to set it too high given the circumstances. So for people who think that's a built-in excuse, I just think that's reality. If a rookie quarterback goes in there with so many injuries and exceeds expectations, I think that gets you way more excited about thinking, well, what can you do when everyone's healthy? Rather than if he struggles, there's all those missing pieces. You can ask what would happen if all those guys were in there. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if this goes well for the Saints, this could, and again, it'd be one game, but it could give us fans some hope that the future can be better for this franchise. Because right now it feels like, I don't want to say that the Saints are falling off a cliff, and the Saints are definitely not ascending, but the Saints kind of feel stuck in neutral. Whether it's quarterback, whether it's coach, whether it's defense, it kind of feels like we've been watching the same movie 3 years in a row. And you know what? If it's a great movie, you'll watch that damn movie 3 times. But if it's a really boring movie or it's one that, it's just too inconsistent, you probably don't want to watch it 3 years in a row. So for the Saints, that's kind of where they're at. And if Spencer Rattler goes out there on Sunday and he plays really well, you start to wonder, A, have the Saints found their quarterback of the future? It'd be way too early to tell, but that's a question that we would have to ask. B, if he is the quarterback of the future, how quickly can he help their financial situation? Because if you have a quarterback on a rookie salary, that is usually the key to championships. In the Saints situation, though, it'll be the key to getting under the salary cap faster than usual. And then C, if Spencer Rattler balls out and if the offense looks really good, what the hell do they do at the quarterback position? That would be fascinating because I thought this entire year, it's Derek Carr bearing injury. I've said it a million times. And it was clearly Derek Carr bearing injury. And I know Dennis Allen has said once Carr's healthy, they will go back to him. But what if Spencer Rattler leads them to a victory over the Bucs and plays well against the Broncos on Thursday night, and all of a sudden the Saints, who were 2-3, go into that long extended break before the Chargers game at 4-3? Changes the outlook. And that would pose a very interesting question. But I think the two would be the most important. Did you find your potential long-term quarterback? And B, if you think he can be your potential long-term quarterback, how quickly can you fix your cap situation? I think it would be really awesome for this team. It would expedite the process in a major way. Now, there's one thing about Spencer Rattler that I feel confident in saying he will do on Sunday, and that's target Chris Olave. Before I get into that, I want to get a word from one of our sponsors, Scott Vicknair.
And Jonathan Williams brings it all the way back from the 20-yard line.
What a terrific way to end the first half.
And tonight's game is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Attorneys. They always fight for the win.
You mean attorney? It's one lawyer. Scott Vicknair?
No, there's 2.
Brad Scott and David Vicknair.
Well, it's confusing.
That it is. They could have picked a better name.
Scott Vicknair, Injury Attorneys, we fight for the win.
Once again, thank you to Scott Vicknair for being part of the program. We greatly appreciate it. So I've said before, we don't really know what's going to happen in Spencer Rattler's debut. The NFL is so unpredictable. This thing can go well. It can go kind of mediocre. It can go terribly wrong. The one thing I feel confident about, though, is that Spencer Rattler is going to target Chris Olave. I think that just feels like a given at this point. With the, how they've talked about each other this offseason, I think there is kind of an underlying chemistry there that couldn't be important. And I want to bring up this quote before I get into our tweet of the week. And it was from Spencer Rattler back in the summer when asked about Chris Olave and then practicing together. He said, "The dude's different. I make it a key point when he's in, get him the ball. It's that simple." And honestly, sometimes it is that simple. And as I mentioned before, this is going to bring us into our tweet of the week for this edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. And as always, guys, our tweet of the week is presented by Standard Mortgage, your local lender for life. To get in touch with a home loan expert today, give them a call at 504-569-3902. And I said earlier this week, it's a big if, but if Spencer Rattler ends up being a starting caliber quarterback, that will completely change the outlook for the Saints. And I totally definitely feel that way. I mentioned it before, but what I love about this idea of Spencer Rattler, if he ends up being the guy, I think you could have that connection with Chris Olave. And I think Chris Olave has been underutilized the last couple of weeks. I think this past Monday was the pinnacle of it. The fact that before garbage time, Mason Tipton had more targets than Chris Olave, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I did not love that. And I think for Spencer Rattler, when you're a rookie quarterback and there's going to be kind of those live bullets thrown in your face from that defensive Todd Bowles, I think you need that safety net. And I think Chris Olave can absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, be that safety net for him. Not only is he their best receiver, he creates the most separation. And I think he runs a lot of those short to intermediate routes that for Spencer, he can kind of zip it in there and kind of keep the chains moving. And as I mentioned before, you want to stay on schedule. I think Chris Olave can help him do that. So I think there's been great moments from Olave. I don't think he's been targeted as much. This to me feels like that moment where he can be his safety net. You see a lot of young quarterbacks in this league. They kind of develop a safety net pretty early. Some slower than others. But I think for Spencer, given the fact that the Saints don't have a plethora of weapons to begin with, I think Olave is going to be his guy. And this isn't me saying it wishful thinking because I think Olave has been underutilized, although I have said that that is the case. I truly believe it. Olave's talked about how he has potential and how he sees a special arm. Rattler's obviously talked about Olave being a different wide receiver and bringing a lot to the table. I think that could be the connection that goes a long way. And I also think this is the perfect matchup for this to happen because let's go back to what happened last week, guys. The Buccaneers, granted, they played excellent football offensively. Defensively, the Falcons threw for 500 yards. Now, that isn't to say Rattler's going to throw for 500 yards. If he threw for half of that, that would be an excellent debut for this kid. But I think we've seen, whether it was Drake London last week, whether it was Darnell Mooney last week, whether it was Kyle Pitts last week, if you were a pass catcher on the Falcons, you were going to get opportunities. Chris Olave, the number one pass catcher on the Saints, is going to get opportunities, especially with the rookie quarterback throwing the football his way. I just think this is the perfect spot for Olave to have that breakout game. And by breakout, I don't mean he kind of like introduces himself to the world as a good player. Olave is already a really good player. We know that. But I think we're all kind of waiting for that 100-plus yard game from Olave, 8 catches, whatever it may be. I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to go out there and do just that. So I have high hopes for Olave this Sunday. I would be honestly kind of disappointed and surprised if he doesn't end up shining in this spot. So we'll see what happens. But, like I said, no Taysom Hill. O-line's banged up. Shaheed's banged up. Where are you going to go with the football if you're Spencer Rattler? It doesn't mean you force feed him completely, but if you feel like, man, you have those moments to get a quick 6-7 yards, I think that can work. And what I want to throw out there, and I didn't mention it before, and I should have, you got to remember, Clint Kubiak was a part of the Saints process that went into drafting Spencer Rattler. As a new OC, you're going to interact with him, pick his brain, get his take on Spencer Rattler. I think there's going to be a clear and precise game plan from Clint Kubiak. And I think part of that game plan, besides getting Spencer Rattler to roll out a little bit, is getting those quick, kind of easy throws to Olave, let Rattler settle into the game, and get some confidence as the game progresses. So I think it's the perfect script for Olave to go do his thing. And like I said before, I would be really, really surprised if it doesn't end up working out in his favor. So what are the keys to the Saints beating the Bucs? I'm going to talk about it in just a second. Before I do that, a very, very quick word from Theo's Pizza.
Scan the code now and tackle your hunger with Theo's Pizza, your neighborhood pizza with 5 convenient locations. Who dat? Your taste buds are about to find out.
Once again, thank you to Theo's Pizza for being part of the program. We greatly appreciate it. So Saints, Bucs this Sunday, it feels like a must win. I think the expectations have changed a little bit now that Rattler's in. I think a lot of us Saints fans have gone from, man, you better win this game or the season's over, to, I just hope Spencer Rattler looks good and, be damned the result. I feel like it has kind of shifted. And that's not a negative for Saints fans. I do think we could have our cake and eat it too and say, I want the Saints to win and Spencer Rattler look good. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think we should all want that. But I definitely feel like there's been a little bit of a vibe change where it went from they better win this Sunday or Dennis Allen's on the hot seat and all that. And although I'm pretty sure a lot of us are still going to say DA's on the hot seat, to the focus is on the rookie quarterback and everything else kind of secondary to that topic. But if the Saints are going to beat the Bucs this Sunday, get back to 3-3, and more importantly, really get back into this NFC South picture. They're not out of it, obviously. It's so early in the season. And if you look at the standings, you got 2-3-2 teams and then them at 2-3. But a win over the Bucs would really, really help out the Saints in this perspective. You don't want to drop to 2-4, be 2 full games behind Tampa, and feel like, you lost so much ground early. You're in a rough spot, especially especially for the Saints right now, where this game is at home. You can't really afford to drop it in your eyes and fall to 2-4. If that's going to happen, obviously we talked about Rattler and what he needs to do. And one of the really big ones here is going to be avoid the big mistake. I think for Ian Book's first start and only start with the Saints, and I don't want to compare the two prospects. Spencer Rattler is a superior prospect to Ian Book. It's not even close. But I remember Saints were trying to keep things close and easy for the rookie quarterback, and he throws what should have been a simple ball to the flat, ends up being a pick six. And the Saints never really recovered. And again, different teams, different quarterback, different prospect, different talent. But if the Saints are going to win this game, they can't have those catastrophic mistakes. And we've even seen it with the veteran quarterbacks. 2 weeks ago, Derek Carr, pick six, costly. Rashid Shaheed, fumble, goes in the end zone, costly. Those can't happen. Saw last week, Saints are driving down the field on the opening drive after they decided to receive Derek Carr interception. So can't have the costly mistake. You feel like it's going to happen at some point with the rookie quarterback, and that's why I said before, if he avoids that, it would be all the more impressive for his debut. But that's going to be one of the main keys for me. Can you protect Rattler, and can Rattler avoid making that mistake? Number two, what we've all come for. If you are a casual fan, you don't have to be Saints-Bucks fan. You be a casual fan. You know this is Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore week. You know it. And this is what you come for. This is what you bring the popcorn for. You sit down and you watch two guys that are masters at their craft go at each other in a 60-minute war. And for Lattimore, let's be honest, I don't think there's a player more bored this season than him. And what I mean by that is he's not getting any freaking targets. I believe it came out today. He's been targeted 9 times this season. 9 times in 5 games. The guy's got no work right now. Now he's going to have his work cut out for him against Mike Evans. This is one of the best individual rivalries in the NFL. I know we always talk about team rivalries, but in terms of just individual rivalries, this is as good as it gets, in my opinion, obviously. Now, for Evans, he's coming off a 2-touchdown game. You know that he's kind of Baker Mayfield's security blanket. He's going to want to go to him early and often in this game. And if Lattimore can take Mike Evans out of the equation here, this changes a lot for the Saints. Because when you're struggling to really stop the run, and boy knows the Saints, they are really struggling in the run defense right now, you're going to need to combat that by taking something else away from Tampa. And what better way to kind of, poke holes in that Tampa offense than taking away Mike Evans? Because he's not just the red zone threat. He's the deep threat. He's just the main guy that you're going to go to on those money critical situations. So I think Mike Evans versus Lattimore, it's a no-brainer, but it absolutely is one of the keys to victory. And if Lattimore is able to go out there and neutralize Mike Evans for the most part and win that matchup, which he's done many times before, and I truly believe he's going to do it again, that will help the Saints in a big way. Because right now, I'd love to say, shut down the run, make Tampa Bay one-dimensional, and you'll figure it all out. I don't think they can shut down the run right now. They haven't proven they can shut down the run, and that concerns me. So you got to flip it over to what you are good at. And what you are good at is being a man-to-man defense, except for last Monday when they decided to switch to zone. Let Marshawn Lattimore go to work against Mike Evans. He does that. Great key for the Saints. Third and final one, and I think this is so important for this team. Can we not get off to a slow start? I don't know what's going on the last 2 weeks for the Saints, but when you put yourself in a hole like that and you are not a team built to kind of come back from double digits, it's really tough. It is really, really tough for this team. So I think for the Saints, that is imperative. Obviously, you fall down 7-0, it's not a big deal, but I think the way these past couple games have gone, falling down 10-0 to the Chiefs, all of a sudden putting yourself in a 7-0 hole before the game even starts against the Falcons because you have that special teams, return that goes south. Can't have that happen, especially against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay coming off a loss that they felt should have been a win. They're going to be highly motivated. They've been playing really efficient football. They have not been making the big mistakes on offense for the most part. The Saints, on the other hand, there's been some mistakes, as we mentioned. Derek Carr with the interceptions, Rashid on the special teams problem there. Offensive pass protection hasn't been great. So I think for New Orleans, can you avoid a really sloppy start to this game? Avoid that sloppy start. Your rookie quarterback won't feel like he's pressing, and eventually that crowd will settle in and be a factor for this Tampa Bay game. So I think those are all so important. I think, a couple of days ago, I probably would have said without a doubt I would pick Tampa because I just don't like the way the Saints are playing right now. I think the Spencer Rattler element kind of puts you in a state of unknown where you still probably go, well, the safe pick is Tampa, but who knows? I think the Saints right now kind of been playing as a team that looks a little lifeless, which is crazy to say because it's only week 6, but that's how it's felt the last 3 weeks. They kind of looked dejected. There was a moment in that Chiefs game where I was watching the product on the field and I was like, man, I know it's early, but these guys kind of look like they're ready to go home. Part of me can't blame him, but it felt that way. And I can't help but wonder if getting Rattler in the building is going to inject some life into this team. I hope that's the case. I hope it gives them a little bit of, motivation to go out there and play some inspired football. But this is a critical stretch for this team. Tampa Bay, Denver, you got to find a way. If they win both, all of a sudden the season feels a little bit different. They lose both. Obviously, we got to start talking about if heads are going to roll. So we'll see what happens. I think it's so tough to call right now. My head says Tampa. My heart says New Orleans, obviously. But there's just so much unknown with Rattler that's going to be interesting. But obviously, I'd love to see what you guys have to say with your predictions for this. And we'll get into our fan Q&A in just a second. But before we do that, I just want to get a quick word from one more sponsor today, Sunshine.
It's rare to find someone you can count on when it's go time. It's even more rare to find someone you can count on, well, all the time. At Sunshine, we're proud to offer the John Deere equipment you need and the team you can depend on and off the field. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Once again, thank you to Sunshine. That brings us to our Q&A presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. Let's get into any comments, questions, predictions that you guys may have and go through there. Rose C saying, who dat? Chris, got another who dat. Kermit saying, I'll attend every live you do. Thank you for that. Rose City saying, Rattler Snake. Rachel saying, Saints finally doing something different. Yeah, it definitely feels a little different with Rattler in the building. I think there's more energy at the moment. And again, I'm not trying to knock Derek Carr because, like I said, Rattler can go out there, look crappy, and then all of a sudden we're like, all right, we need Derek Carr back in there at quarterback. But the energy does feel a little different this week. I think there's some excitement in the air, and part of it could be we're desperate for that. The other part could be, he's a talented quarterback. Now, I always say quarterback is more important about kind of the chest up. And I do think Rattler is a smart quarterback. He's just got to go out there and execute, and we'll see. It's going to be fun. Philly saying, Chris, the O is going to eat with Rattler. I hope so. Rosie says, please don't jump on Rattler if he starts slow or makes a mistake. I think Dennis Allen, and I rarely say this, I think he did a really great job of the way he handled this situation, at least publicly. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And honestly, right now, I don't really care what's going on behind the scenes. What I care about is the Saints coming out and announcing a starter on Wednesday instead of doing a whole song and dance saying, oh, we're going to wait until Sunday to announce our starter. Fuck all that. They come out, they announce Rattler as a starter. And I think Dennis Allen did a good job of talking about how it's important to let him play through those, those pains and bumps. And I think that's critical because if you tell a young quarterback, man, you make a mistake, you're getting pulled out of the game, that is damaging. That's crippling to them. So I think the Saints have handled it well. And I agree to your point. You don't just kind of jump on them if they make one mistake. Got to give it time. Obviously, if he plays these 2 games and he goes, no touchdowns and 5 picks, we can talk about it. But let's let these games kind of progress. Let each drive progress, and it's going to be fascinating. Kermit says Rattler will do okay. Finally doing something different. That's all that matters. Also said Rattler will at least throw it to Olave and like used car, broken engine. I do believe he's going to, and I said it before, I do believe he's going to target Olave a lot. I really do. And I think that's critical for this team right now. I think for this offense that is just deprived of weapons, got to use number 12 consistently. I remember last week when the Falcons played the Bucs, and, I think it's fitting to bring it up because the Bucs are their upcoming opponent. There was so much chat around Drake London and like, oh, what's the usage? What's going on? And Tampa Bay just, whether it was a defensive problem or Atlanta saying, hey, we're going to force feed him. He got targeted 13 times, had like 12 catches. I'm not saying Olave's going to have 12 catches, but that's the type of game you want. You want to have one of those where it's a little bit of a reminder of why you traded up in the first round to get him, why you feel like he is the, kind of the engine to your passing game. So I'm excited. Jerry G says rattlesnake time. Louisiana says, I think he's ready. He stopped against adversity. Not expecting him to be perfect, but I believe he will impress in his first start. Some people forget Spencer was Senior Bowl MVP over Bo Nix and Penix. I'm kind of glad you mentioned, other rookies. It's worth noting he is going to be the 3rd rookie quarterback going up against Tampa already this season. They had Jaden Daniels week 1, who went 17 of 24 for 184 passing yards, 80+ rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. It really felt like Daniels was doing his first read and then taking off. Jaden since has been tremendous, an MVP candidate, if you want to say. And then Bo Nix, who went 25 of 36, 216 passing yards, no interceptions, didn't have, the I guess, prolific rushing numbers like Jaden, but played a really clean game. So I do find it fascinating that both rookie quarterbacks so far have played relatively clean football games against the Buccaneers, and maybe the Saints can pull something from that. But yeah, I mean, the talent's always been there. It's always been there for Spencer. Now it's a matter of making sure you get his best football out. Rachel says, will this make Haener feel some type of way? I mean, I'm sure he's upset about it. I will say, though, A, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is the Saints put out the best player out that can make them win and gives them the best chance to win. And two, Haener can be bad in the moment, and maybe you guys feel differently about this. I don't think there's a better job in sports than backup quarterback. You get paid pretty well. You don't got to take the hits. And yeah, it's a nice life. It is a nice life. So you can be upset at the moment, but I do think Jake Haener has that kind of vibe of a reliable backup quarterback. I just don't think the ceiling's high enough for him to be the starter. And that's why I believe the Saints are making the right move here. So yeah, I'm sure he feels some type of way in the moment because you're thinking, hey, if I was QB2, why am I not QB1 now that QB1 went down? But I get why the Saints did it. But eventually, I think we'll come to realize backup quarterback is a pretty good gig to have in the NFL. Bob was saying, Rattler's side, I'm more focused on the defensive side of the ball. Dennis has showed he just isn't cut out to close out a game. If it comes down to it, if the defense sucks, what is Allen doing? I think it is a very, very good question. And we've always said, right, for Dennis Allen, if the defense is not doing its job, what are you here for? Because it kind of felt the last 2 years, the offense was struggling, but we went, all right, at least Dennis Allen's side of the ball is doing its thing. Well, I'm not saying that's the reason they're 2-3, because there's a lot of problems with Saints being 2-3. They can't stop the run right now. Pass rush leaves a lot to be desired, and it just feels like those late game situations, they haven't stepped up. Falcons, Eagles. The Eagles one's the real killer for me. That should have been a win. Falcons, you could argue, should have been a win as well, but they didn't. And I do agree, like, are they just not cut out to close games? Only time will tell, but it's a legitimate concern. Jerry G says, SOS, please someone help the Saints. Louisiana says, Kubiak also said he doesn't have to dumb anything down at all for Rattler too. That playbook finna open up. I mean, that is the hope, right? That is absolutely the hope that they can, open up the playbook, get him rolling out a little bit more, make him feel comfortable. And I hope that is the case. And I kind of think it will be, honestly, at least early on. Rather trade for D-line help than Adams. I mean, I would trade for help in the trenches over Devontae Adams as well. Just who you can get is the question. Jerry G says, just win on Sunday. That is absolutely the plan. Louisiana says, what's impressive by Spencer too is his ability to make accurate throws and good reads while on the run. Yeah, we got to hope that he can do that in the NFL, and hopefully he can. If he does that, you're going to feel pretty good about him. And I think we're going to see it's going to be a drive-to-drive basis, right? I think you're going to kind of get the tone of the Who Dat Nation and it shift every series that he's out there. Hopefully, the most part, it's going to be positive, though. I don't think we should take Rattler out when Carr gets healthy. I think it's all relative to how he's playing. I really think that matters a lot. I know that's a no-brainer, but if Carr is healthy and the better option, you got to put him out there. If Rattler goes 2-0, I think what the Saints might do is the whole, well, Derek's not ready yet. The oblique's hurting. And by the way, oblique injury is a pain in the ass, especially when you're a quarterback. I mean, they might say multiple games and only missing 2, but realistically, he probably won't be 100% for a while. And I think, if Rattler plays well, I could see them doing the whole, all right, Carr needs another week. And then if you keep playing well, he needs one more week. And then eventually you can be like, all right, we're starting this guy for the rest of the year. But he has to play well and he's got to earn it. Dwayne says, Saints will find themselves in the 49ers shoes when they had Jimmy G on the roster, but found out Brock P was their QB of the future and shipped him off. Ideally, that's what ends up happening. Will that happen? I don't know. Saints don't have their Shanahan as the head coach. Don't get me wrong, Kubiak, we are all optimistic about him, but it's not exactly the same situation. But I understand the sentiment, and that is the hope, though. That is 1,000% the hope that Rattler can go out there, look really good, and the Saints say, you know what? This guy's got to start for the rest of the season. Louisiana says Rattler had very good chemistry in training camp. They were really fluid with each other. There were moments on the sideline. You could tell Olave lights up when he's playing with Rattler. Louisiana also says, hey, Chris, do you think McMillan will be covering Olave through the whole game? I think for Tampa, I'm going to have to go back and check to see how they covered Atlanta. All I could say is for that matchup, it didn't feel like they did a really, really good job of what they did out there. My guess would be, is it probably going to be Jamel Dean? I really don't know who they're going to throw out there. But I don't think Tampa has an answer for Olave anyway. I actually think that's where Tampa's really gettable this year is in the secondary. So I think it could be a big game for him. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I really do like this matchup for Olave. If they can keep Rattler clean and let him get some quick throws early to get some confidence building, kind of get that rhythm going. Tampa is a defense that's very susceptible right now to the pass, and I think this could be a nice little showing out for him, for sure. Jerry says, definitely a must-win because I'm tired of Falcons fans running their mouths every day. I don't know where you guys, I'm not saying you guys are lying, because you guys definitely are not lying, but maybe I just have a different, For You page on Twitter. I never see Falcons fans. I'm so glad about it. I don't hear about it. Jerry says, can we get rid of Jamal Williams? I mean, they could get one step closer when Taysom and Kendra Miller are back. If not, then no. You're kind of stuck with him for now. Louisiana says Godwin's going to be battling Alante in the slot. Yeah, that's going to be one of the premier matchups of the game. 1,000%. And I love the way Alante's been playing. He's one of the guys that week to week, you feel like you know what you're going to get from him, and it's going to be quality football. Kendall says this defense has to help Rattler, man. This defense is not top 5. It's not. It is not top 5 for sure. They've been struggling. They kind of look like a broken unit at the moment. They have to have a get-right game at some point. I thought last week, I know it was against Mahomes, I thought they would have some moments because of the Kansas City Chiefs' lack of kind of skill players right now with no Pacheco and no Marquise Hollywood Brown and no Rashee Rice, but it didn't matter. So that kind of concerns me. Philly says I'm all in for the rookie with Todd Bowles. Yeah, Todd Bowles is definitely not the guy you want to go up against in one of your first starts. That would be that's a bad matchup. If they went up against Brian Flores defense, that'd be a bad matchup. Just not an experienced defensive-minded coach. That's the last thing you kind of want. Louisiana says, I think we'll see the offense move different due to Rattler's ability. We'll see new things in the offense. Playbook is going to open up since Clint doesn't have the limit what plays he can. At this point, I don't have any hope in the Saints. I'm going to have to see something really different against the Bucs to think otherwise. Yeah, but that is the hope. And that's why I said before, right? If Rattler goes out there and plays well, all of a sudden you feel like the vibe in the building changes a little bit, and they need it right now. When you go 2-0 and you look good doing it, and you lose 3 in a row, 2 of them being really frustrating, one of them kind of being an embarrassing loss on primetime, you're kind of near rock bottom. So you kind of need to pick me up, and this could happen. This could be the pick me up. At least we're hoping. Kendall says we can't stop the run, can't defend crossing routes. Debo's flag happy, and we can't get a pass rush. This defense is not it, man. I don't trust it. Neither do I. It's kind of hard to trust it right now. When they give us something that's trustworthy, then we'll go with it. But for right now, not a trustworthy defense. Louisiana says you're not wrong. I saw another one of the big Saints podcasters say that earlier. He said the defense looked dejected because offense doesn't do nothing with the ball. But with Rattler, they'll play different. I think you'll feel a little bit different. I think the vets will kind of want to play really well and be able to help out the rookie in his first start and, keep him on schedule. So I do think there's going to be a different energy in the Dome on Sunday. I really do. Maybe that's me being naive, but I don't think I'm wrong. Just had a 2-game road trip. Now you can have a 2-game home trip. This 2-game home stands everything for this team right now with the way this season's kind of falling out of control. Can you get back on track? It's paramount for them. Paramount. Rose City says, got to show me they know how to win, so Saints will be 2-4. I understand that sentiment. Chris, if Rattler comes out and lights it up, will we have a quarterback controversy when Carr comes back, or will it not be an issue because of Carr's contract? I think it's relative to, how does he play the next 2 games? Because I think you're not rushing Carr back for Thursday night. I think it's Rattler Sunday, Rattler Thursday. If he wins both games, wins are not a QB stat. If the Saints win both games and Rattler looks steady doing it, I think if you're the Saints, you got to, considering his opponents, tough defense with Todd Bowles, and then the Broncos defense has been just, God damn. I mean, Vance Joseph has that defense playing lights out. If they're able to win those games and he looks efficient against 2 top-tier defensive minds, you got to give him that 3rd start against the Chargers and then go from there. And I think for the Saints, it's going to be tough because I know there's that connection there with Carr and Dennis Allen. But if the Saints see Rattler play well and they win the next 2 games and they go right back to Carr, I think there is a little bit of a problem there. And I think that you're going to lose guys in the locker room. So I think there's only a quarterback controversy if Spencer Rattler plays really well and the Saints are winning games. If he's not playing well, then there probably isn't a controversy. But if he's playing well and the Saints are winning, there absolutely will be a controversy. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to be honest, the Saints have been so boring in terms of national scope the last couple of years that this might be exactly what they need to kind of thrust their way right back in the picture. I know Olave is so happy to have someone that's finally going to look his way. I hope that's the case, man. And I think it will be. DA said once Carr is back healthy, will continue being the starter going forward. It's what you say right now. I do think, you're the head coach of the team. If you start winning games and you feel like, man, there's not going to be a lot of good vibes in here if I make the switch back to Carr, I think he would probably think differently. Any word on Kendra Miller? He's been full practice the last 2 days. I expect him to play on Sunday. If not, we got a fucking problem. I'll tell you that much. If he does not play Sunday, there's a problem. Jack says, really hope DA doesn't use Carr being injured as an excuse for if they lose the next 2 games. It depends how they lose it, you know? The defense has to start playing better, though. That is one thing he can control. You want to tell me he can't control the offense right now? I'm not buying it, but fine, whatever. If you can't get your defense back on track when that's your specialty, that's a bad look on the head coach. Jack also says, off topic, but thoughts on Ravens-Commanders matchup? I think it's a really, really good litmus test for the Commanders. Commanders have been really fun right now at 4-1. Jaden Daniels playing out of his mind, but I'm waiting for them to have that real challenge. And I think this is going to be it, especially with the Ravens playing some great football right now. Both quarterbacks are out of their minds at the moment. I think that's going to be a fun one. I'm really, really excited to see how that one plays out. So that's one of those games I believe it's the early window for that one. Yeah, I would have been cool with that being Sunday night game instead of Bengals-Giants, to be honest. But I will definitely be tuning into that one when I can in between breaks for the Saints game. At the end of the day, you got to go with the player that gives you the best chance to win. Maybe this will light a fire under Hainer. I don't know. We'll see. It might, it might not. Jordan says, compared to Carr forcing dead plays like the interception against the Chiefs on Monday and the pick 6 against Atlanta, Carr's an 11-year veteran making throws like he's Bryce Young. Yeah, he just hates pressure. And I know all quarterbacks hate pressure. I get that, but he especially hates pressure. Ivan says, Rattler just has that aura about him that gives me that leadership vibe, and we need this as a team. They definitely need that kind of boost in the locker room. There's no doubt about it. Who cares about Fresno State quarterbacks? I've never seen a good one. Rattler will toss to Olave, and finally will be a decent team. I'm tired of broken engine used car. Louisiana says, man, if Rattler balls out, I'm going to shake a lot of stuff up in the organization. It's going to shake up a lot of stuff in the organization for sure. Yeah, but I think it's needed. I think it's needed if he plays well. They need that kind of shakeup because the Saints need to get to modern football. And there are glimpses of it now because they have Kubiak, but they're still kind of, I don't want to say a fossil, but they do not play that modern football that you always see from some of these teams that are always on primetime. You just know that, you know? Ratton and Kenjay will give this team a much-needed boost of energy. That's the hope. It looked like Falcons were able to run comfortably on the Bucs. You think we'll be able to get the run game going with AK and Kendrick, Chris? It's going to be tough with the O-line being as banged up as they are. And, you know, regarding the Falcons, they did run the football decently well with Bijan, but they didn't have a great game on the ground. I believe they had like just under 80 rushing yards, maybe in the 70s. So it was all about the passing attack. That doesn't mean the Saints can't run the football, but the last couple of weeks have been kind of uphill sledding, and it makes sense, right? No Lucas Patrick, no Cesar Ruiz, no Eric McCoy. So I'm probably going to lean towards a struggle on running the football. You're going to try and set the tone early to take pressure off the rookie, but it's going to be tough. Is Taysom progressing at all? Yeah, Taysom still hasn't practiced. Don't expect him to play this Sunday. All right, he misses Sunday, misses Thursday, after that Thursday. So October 27th, maybe? I don't know if my math's correct. My math might be wrong there. I'm trying to do it in my head, but yeah, October 27th, I believe that's when you'll see him back in action, at least hopefully back in action. Kendra needed a week of rest last week to recover from all that rest he had before. Yeah, I tweeted that one. He needed a week of rest. He needed some more rest from his rest. It's go time now, though. I think Kendra can give this running game a change of pace, and I'm hoping that's the case. Jose says, what do we need to see from Rattler to say he's the future? You need to see a lot of consecutive starts of good football. But let's start Sunday. Let's start simple. Look like you are ready for the moment. Avoid a bunch of costly mistakes. Keep the offense on schedule. Got to make 1 to 2 wow throws, and I think he's going to do that regardless of if he plays well. So I'm not really worried about that part. But avoid silly sacks. Like, don't hold on to the ball too long. If you snap the ball, it's a protection issue. Hopefully he can learn that. But if he's sitting back there kind of being risky with the football and taking unnecessary sacks, that kind of be frustrating. It's an excellent question, though. But I do think it's going to take time, and I think we're going to need a couple of weeks to even get close to a lean on how we feel about him. But let's just start with Sunday and say, avoid the silly mistakes, keep the offense moving, and just be efficient, man. I think that's important. Run the offense the way the offense is meant to be run. And I think you'll understand with Kubiak's play calling, if he starts kind of being in his bag and getting into his tricks, I think that means he feels like that Spencer's doing his job. And if they're getting really, really ultra conservative with it, that'll probably go the other way there, Damn, makes sense. Hopefully you can be back in a few weeks. It's crazy how much the Saints offense hinges on Taysom's ability. availability. Yeah, it does. 25 combined points in the 2 games without him, which is not a great sign. Jordan says, praying that Rattler takes his starting job and runs with it. We are stuck in mediocrity. What will it take for the front office to realize that DA isn't a good head coach and just a coordinator? Jordan, it's an excellent comment. I can't answer it, though. I've been trying for the last 3 years. I can't figure it out. I don't know why. I really don't know why they feel like this is okay. This is a good spot to be in. It's a really bad spot to be in. Just hope the O-line doesn't let Bro get smoked. Yeah, I mean, you don't want Rattler taking a lot of unnecessary hits. I'm glad DA said he's not going to pull Rattler if mistakes were made, and said he's going to let Rattler play. That's the best way to get a solid evaluation. Yeah, and you need that because the Saints right now are kind of in quarterback purgatory. They got to figure out if they got something with this kid. Kendall says, what do you think about putting Derek Carr on IR? I don't expect it to happen. Would it be the worst idea? Because then it gives you that 4-week leash with no pressure on Spencer. But I can't see them doing that because I think their hope is to get him back for that October 27th game against the Chargers. But we'll see. The solid firing gave me hope that if DA continues to underperform, Mickey will do something about it. Or maybe I'm just coping. Not a knock. I do kind of think it's almost kind of coping because I think the Jets feel like they're in win now mode and there's so much desperate stuff going on in New York and Aaron Rodgers is kind of running the show. So it's a little bit of a different vibe here. I think the Saints won't fire DA this season at all, regardless of results. I think, how this season plays out, then maybe they'll make a decision in the offseason. I don't think they'll have like a rash decision, kind of like the Jets after 5 games. Ed says, well, if the defense is still legit, then we will see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be key. And so much focus on Rattler, and rightfully so. But the defense has to start playing better football. They have been really, really disappointing through the last 3 games, I would say, in certain spots. I think the Eagles and Falcons games, they played well, but what does it mean if you come up short in the big moments? Like those great defenses are supposed to close. And then for this past week against the Chiefs, I mean, that was an embarrassing showing from that unit and just not what you want to put out on tape. 100+ yards for Kareem Hunt rushing, 130 receiving yards for Juju Smith-Schuster. Just not ideal. So we'll see. Saints have a great opportunity this Sunday against the Buccaneers. Spencer Rattler is going to make his debut. And I think this is going to kind of give us fans that energy, that jolt, kind of shot of espresso that we need right now because it's been all bad the last 3 weeks. And again, doesn't mean Spencer's going to play well, but just having something to look forward to is encouraging for us fans. And I really, really hope that it goes well for him. But we'll see what happens when that game goes to halftime Sunday. We will have our halftime show powered by 4D. And then after it goes final, and hopefully we can get back to having a victory recap podcast, we will have our post-game live stream. So I hope to see all you there, but that's going to do it for this edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, leaving your comments, your thoughts. We all greatly appreciate it here at Boo Crew Media. Make sure to subscribe, guys, so you can stay locked in for our next episode here of the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation. Have a great Thursday night, everyone.